a single signature, a single hidden clause, and suddenly whispers began spreading through royal circles that everything people thought they knew about Princess Diana's legacy might be changing behind closed doors. Not with a public announcement, not with a grand ceremony, but with legal documents, private meetings, and a growing power struggle that allegedly reached the highest levels of the royal establishment. And at the center of it all stood two men connected by blood, history, and a name that still casts an enormous shadow over the monarchy nearly 3 decades after Diana's death. The story began when intense speculation emerged surrounding Prince William and his cousin Louis Spencer, the young aristocrat whose connection to Princess Diana runs through the Spencer family itself. Royal watchers began noticing unusual movements behind the scenes, legal consultations, private gatherings, reports of experts being brought together. Nothing was officially confirmed, yet the silence itself became the story. Because in royal history, the moments nobody wants to discuss are often the moments that attract the most attention. Questions started circulating. Why were legal specialists allegedly being consulted? Why were discussions reportedly focusing on Diana's legacy rather than current royal affairs? And why did sources continue pointing toward a growing alliance between William and the Spencer family? According to growing speculation, the discussion centered around protecting the long-term future of everything Diana represented. Not simply her memory, not simply old photographs and public tributes. Something much larger. Something involving her humanitarian vision, her influence, and the enormous emotional connection she still holds with millions around the world. That possibility alone sent curiosity levels through the roof. Because while monarchs come and go, governments rise and fall, and public opinion shifts constantly, Diana remains different. Her image never truly faded. Her influence never completely disappeared. In many ways, her story continued evolving long after her tragic death, and that enduring power has always made her legacy one of the most emotionally sensitive subjects in royal life. As rumors intensified, attention quickly turned toward Louis Spencer. For years, he remained largely outside the royal spotlight, yet suddenly his name was appearing alongside William's in discussions about Diana's future legacy. Observers noted the symbolism immediately. William represented Diana's eldest son. Louis represented the Spencer bloodline. Together, they embodied two sides of Diana's world, and that symbolism carried enormous weight inside royal circles. Some commentators suggested that this growing connection represented something bigger than family loyalty. They believed it reflected a broader effort to ensure that Diana's original values would remain protected for future generations. Whether those claims were true or not almost became secondary. The perception alone was creating shockwaves, because perception is often more powerful than reality within royal institutions. The more people discussed William and Louis, the more another question began emerging. If one side was gaining influence, who might feel threatened by that influence? Suddenly, conversations shifted toward Queen Camilla. For decades, Camilla's public image has existed alongside the lingering memory of Diana. Every royal appearance, every public event, every major milestone. Somewhere in the background, comparisons always seem to follow. And according to palace speculation, the possibility of Diana's legacy becoming stronger rather than weaker reportedly created deep anxiety among certain royal observers. Nobody publicly declared war. Nobody stood before cameras making accusations. But whispers became louder, much louder. Some insiders allegedly feared that a renewed focus on Diana could dramatically reshape public attention within the monarchy. Others believed it could further strengthen William's already growing position as the future face of the institution. Then another twist appeared, a surprising one. Reports and rumors began linking discussions surrounding Meghan Markle to the wider controversy. Suddenly, commentators were connecting multiple royal storylines together. William, Louis Spencer, Camilla, Meghan, the connections were largely built on speculation and interpretation rather than verified facts. Yet in the world of royal gossip, speculation has a remarkable ability to take on a life of its own. And once those theories began spreading, they spread fast. Social media exploded with debate. Royal forums lit up with arguments. Commentators started asking whether various factions inside and outside the royal family were pursuing different visions for the monarchy's future. Some believed William was quietly consolidating influence. Others believed Diana's legacy was naturally becoming more important as the next generation approached greater responsibilities. Still, others saw nothing more than ordinary palace politics being transformed into sensational headlines. But one thing became impossible to ignore. The emotional power of Diana's name remained extraordinary. Every discussion kept returning to her. Every controversy somehow circled back to her. Every debate eventually became a conversation about what Diana would have wanted. And that reality created a problem, because nobody can truly speak for Diana anymore. Yet everyone seems eager to claim they understand her wishes. As the rumors intensified, observers began describing the situation as an invisible battle, not a battle involving crowns, titles, or official declarations, a battle over symbolism, legacy, public affection, historical memory. And in that battle, Diana remained the most powerful figure in the room despite being gone for nearly 30 years. Meanwhile, William appeared increasingly central to the entire conversation. Every new rumor seemed to strengthen the perception that he was positioning himself as the ultimate guardian of his mother's legacy. Whether by design or by circumstance, public sentiment increasingly connected Diana's enduring influence with William's future reign. That growing perception created enormous pressure throughout royal circles, because if the future king became inseparable from Diana's legacy, then the balance of influence inside the monarchy could change in ways nobody fully anticipated. And as May turned into June, the tension reportedly reached a level that many insiders described as unsustainable. Behind closed doors, decisions were allegedly being discussed, strategies were allegedly being considered, alliances were allegedly forming. And while the public saw only carefully managed appearances, many royal watchers became convinced that a much larger struggle was unfolding beneath the surface. The rumors reached their boiling point when attention shifted directly toward King Charles. Suddenly, the monarch was no longer viewed as a distant observer standing above the controversy. Instead, royal commentators began portraying him as the one figure capable of determining how the entire situation would ultimately end. And that possibility changed everything. For months, conversations had revolved around William, Louis Spencer, Diana's legacy, and the growing speculation surrounding competing interests inside royal circles. But now, the focus narrowed onto a single question. If tensions continued rising, whose side would the king ultimately favor? The answer seemed impossible to predict. On one side stood the present, the existing royal structure, the current balance of power, the people who had spent years helping shape the institution's modern image. On the other side stood the future, Prince William, the next generation, and perhaps most importantly, the enduring emotional influence of Princess Diana herself. The deeper royal commentators dug into the situation, the more they became convinced that this was never simply about legal frameworks, trusts, or administrative authority. Those details merely represented the surface. Beneath everything lay something far more powerful: public affection. And public affection has always been one of the monarchy's most valuable currencies. Every opinion poll seemed to reinforce the same reality. Every major public appearance seemed to tell the same story. William and Catherine increasingly represented stability. Their children symbolized continuity, and Diana's memory remained deeply woven into that narrative. That reality allegedly caused enormous discomfort among those who believed the monarchy should move beyond the constant shadow of the past. Yet moving beyond Diana proved impossible. Every humanitarian project reminded people of her work. Every emotional public moment triggered comparisons. Every generation seemed to discover her story all over again. Instead of fading, her influence appeared to be evolving, and that evolution reportedly became impossible for palace strategists to ignore. Then came a development that completely altered the atmosphere surrounding the entire debate. Across royal media, increasing attention focused on individuals whose lives had allegedly been touched by Diana's humanitarian efforts decades earlier. Their stories began resurfacing. Their experiences became powerful reminders of why Diana remained such an extraordinary figure in the public imagination. Suddenly, the conversation shifted away from palace politics. It became personal, deeply personal, because while institutions debate procedures and authority, ordinary people remember emotions. They remember compassion. They remember moments that changed lives. And that emotional connection created a force far stronger than any legal document or administrative argument. As those stories spread, many observers believed public sentiment overwhelmingly moved toward preserving Diana's independent legacy exactly as people imagined she would have wanted. The optics became impossible to ignore. William appeared increasingly connected to that mission. Louis Spencer appeared increasingly committed to protecting the Spencer family's historical bond with Diana's memory. Together, they projected an image of continuity that resonated strongly with royal supporters around the world. Meanwhile, speculation surrounding rival factions continued generating headlines. But the public mood appeared to be moving in only one direction, toward Diana, toward William, toward the future. And eventually, according to widespread royal gossip, the pressure became too significant for anyone to resist. By early June, commentators began describing the situation as a turning point in the monarchy's modern history. Not because a crown changed hands, not because a constitutional crisis erupted, but because a symbolic transition appeared to be taking place before the world's eyes. The monarchy still belonged to the present king, yet the emotional future increasingly seemed to belong to William. That perception alone carried enormous consequences, because perception eventually shapes reality. The more people viewed William as the guardian of Diana's values, the stronger his future position became. Every photograph, every public appearance, every discussion about legacy reinforced the same narrative. The next era was approaching, and perhaps that was the most remarkable twist of all. Nearly 30 years after her tragic death, Princess Diana still seemed capable of influencing conversations at the highest levels of royal life, not through speeches, not through official authority, but through memory, through symbolism, through a legacy that refused to disappear. As summer sunlight settled over royal residences and public attention slowly moved toward new headlines, the deeper questions remained unanswered. What truly happened behind those closed doors? How many of the rumors were accurate? How many details will never become public? And were the events of 2026 merely the beginning of a much larger transformation that will define the reign of a future king? Because if one lesson emerged from this extraordinary saga, it was this: the most powerful figures inside royal history are not always the ones sitting on the throne. Sometimes they are the ones whose influence survives long after they are gone. And judging by the conversation still echoing through royal circles, Princess Diana's story may be far from finished.